My name's Adam Monaco and I'm the Financial Controller for Hi-Tec Oils. With our national capacity, we can now service Australian companies nationwide. Of late, we have now expanded into the New Zealand market. Here at Hi-Tec Oils, we receive premium base oils and premium additive packs. Together, with our highly trained staff, we manufacture over 500 premium quality products. Hi-Tec Oils is Australian made and Australian owned.
On today's show, we return to Mount Panorama, Bathurst as the historic Formula Fords tackle the mountain as part of the Hi-Tec Oils Bathurst 6 Hour. Then we head over to the UK for all things action-packed on 3 and 4 wheels. First up, we head to Alton Park in the Cheshire region for round 2 of the British Sidecar Championship. Then we head across to Donington Park in Leicestershire for rounds 4 to 6 of the Dunlop MSA British Touring Car Championship. This is Speedweek.
Easter weekend 1938 and racing happened here at Mount Panorama 8 decades later, and a place that was originally built for Sunday drivers is now a mecca of motorsport. On this glorious Easter Sunday when you could not have asked for a better day, there is not a cloud in the sky in the central west of New South Wales here at Mount Panorama.
Been here a number of times over the years in all sorts of different cars, but it's good to be back here racing my Formula Ford. I've raced really all my life, go-karts from 12, as soon as I turned 12 actually, till about 18, raced a few other cars sort of late teens and EH Holden, and a little bit of Formula Ford when I was about 21, moved on to Commodore Cup for a long time, and then I was lucky enough to race in the Australian GT Championship in 2012 and 13 in a Lamborghini and an Audi. And these days we're just having a lot of fun in historic racing in Russell Ingall's old 89 Van Diemen. Well, first race we started 29th, well basically last after breaking the throttle cable in qualifying. So that was a little bit, not quite where we were expecting because I was fastest in practice 1. So I got from 29th to 9th, started 9th in that one and got up to 3rd. And so tomorrow start 3rd. I reckon we've got a good chance to have a win if I do a good job.
This is the first time I've ever raced at Bathurst, so yesterday I must say that I was feeling a little bit anxious after qualifying, etc. But I've got to say it's been just the most amazing day. The only word that I've got to describe it is biblical. This place is incredible. I've just really enjoyed it, and I think that's what you've got to do, is you just got to take the moment and enjoy it. Race 1 I went really well. I actually moved forward, and I moved forward in race 2, so really that's my main aim, and I've got all 4 parts of the car back together, so that's me done for the day, and I'm wrapped. I only started 4 years ago as an older, I suppose, starter, but I obviously grew up at the race circuit just with family and things like that. But I don't know, it's that little itch that needed to be scratched, I suppose. And I've always really enjoyed, the feeling of speed and really testing yourself and challenging yourself. So, 4 or 5 years ago, my husband and my dad decided, right, well, let's buy some Formula Fords and go racing. Because that's the beauty about the historic Formula Ford, is that you get to actually go and race with your mates and your family. And it's all about fun and socialising, but you're going out there and you're having a dip. So, yeah, look, it's been a real challenge. It's 4 years. I didn't do any karts or anything like that. My dad literally slapped me on the arse and said, just go out and drive the bloody thing, and that's literally how it started. My poor mum, about 30 years ago, had a really debilitating stroke, which left her completely disabled and without her speech. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I decided I'd start my own charity, which is called FAST, Racing Against Stroke. And it's fantastic because FAST is actually the acronym for face, arm, speech, time to call. So it's so cool that I can actually tie that in with going fast and And so it's just about getting the message out about that. And, you know, if I can save a couple of lives just from people saying, gosh, there's Claire, there's the fast. If anything happens at home, at least I know what all that means. So I had 2 phone calls last year with people that actually said, you saved my life or my partner's life because I'd actually seen you racing. So job done, job done.
I was born in Sydney, grew up in Sydney, did a mechanics degree at UTS, and then at the end of that, a guy that I knew had a Formula Ford for hire, so and offered me a drive, so I did a bit of Formula Fording in 83 and 84. Found out I wasn't good enough, packed it in, went on a 2-year working holiday to the UK, ended up staying 20 years designing racing cars. I got a job with Reynard Motorsport in Bicester, and this is the first car I designed. Now, we had a bit of what you might call bad luck. With the end of the beginning of the first lap in qualifying, we had a mechanical issue and parked the car in the dirt, so didn't do any of the pre-qualifying thing. And then qualifying was red flag, so I did 2 timed laps. Qualified 12th. That's okay. I was quite happy with that. And then this morning, on the way to the first corner, I got run off the track into the dirt. So I came around about 26 and worked my way back up to 11th or 12th or something. And that's where I started this afternoon's race, and that's where I finished, like 10th maybe. So that's sort of my spot, really.
So I started out go-karting when I was roughly around 9-10 years old in 2002, and then moved up into historic Formula Ford in, I'd say it was about 07, 08 when I was 15, 16. I couldn't obviously get a license for competition until I was around 16. So we did some practice in historic Formula Ford, and eventually we did a couple of years of that. And then in 2013, I moved up to State Formula Ford, where I won the series in my debut year. And then after that, we moved into National Formula Ford 1600, where sadly an engine trouble ironically caused a bit of an issue, and I was unable to finish that year, so I became runner-up. And in 2015, I won the series. Yeah, so in race 1, we started on pole. Obviously, the start was very slow. Got off the grid, and the car just bogged down. I was later told that there was water on the track, and that could have been an issue to it. We raced competitively with the top 3. We fought back and forth very fierce, and we were in contention all the way up to about lap 4, where the engine decided to cease its action, and I shut it down accordingly as the engine was starting to make a noise, and obviously not sounding right. And I ended up in pit lane with a lot of fire marshals around. They were very concerned, but fire marshals sometimes a bit too eager. It was just a bit of smoke and mirrors, and after that we pulled it off, and we obviously have some issue with coolant. There seems to be not much water on board, and sadly that doesn't tell the driver much in a historic Formula Ford because we only go off on temperature.
Probably quite synonymous that we have these cars on track this weekend, of course, the historic Formula Fords for the first time. And joining myself, Brian Vanderwacker, up in commentary for this one this morning is Category Management's Lachlan Mansell. Good morning to you, mates.
Good morning, Brian. Good morning, everybody here at Mount Panorama. Race number 3 of the weekend for the historic Formula Fords, presented by Factory Enterprises. Cars from basically when Formula Ford first started in 1969 through to 1989, competed in the historic Formula Ford category. And Oliver White, the UK driver, a former front-runner at the Walter Hayes Trophy and a former runner-up in the Mazda Rhodes Indy Shootout, has been our race winner in both races so far this weekend, driving his Acura Australia Formula Ford, which is owned by the Davison family. He will start on pole position for this, the opening race of the weekend. It's been a cracking contest, Brian, between him and the best Australian driver, Tom Tweedy, in both of the races that we had yesterday.
Yeah, they've been absolutely crackers, haven't they, so far this weekend, and we're expecting that tradition to continue. Probably, I suppose, one of the sleepers in the pack, you would say, this weekend has been Andrew McGuinness, because he has charged through the field. Didn't have a great qualifying first up on Friday afternoon, but since then he has been mighty.
Set for the final race of the weekend for the historic Formula Ford, brought to us by Factory Enterprises here at Mount Panorama on a crisp Sunday morning. Happy Easter, Bathurst, happy Easter everybody. Lights out and away we go. Great start off pole position for Ollie White. Good start from Andrew McGuinness. Gary Watson making a move up on the outside from the second row of the grid as well. He's made a very strong start. All of the other drivers in the field have been talking about that car's straight line performance, and they jumped away very nicely indeed. And already you can see them shuffling left and right as they make the climb up Mountain Straight, looking to try and get an advantage from the toe, from the slipstream, from the hole being punched in the air by the car in front. But it will be Ollie White who will lead them into Griffin's Bend for the first time. Gary Watson has been the big beneficiary off the start, moving from position 4 up to position 2. And Tom Twatey back there into position number 3.
Great start, wasn't it, from White? He'll lead them through the cutting here for the first time. It's a very dicey point of the track there, of course, at the cutting. Over our 8 decades, we've seen some incredible moments there. Of course, 1980, the Rock for Nick Johnson, which took him out of that event. Then most notably in 2005, when we had that incredible stoush between Marcus Ambrose and Greg Murphy across the top of Mount Panorama for the first time today. And it's great to see this single file formation right now between our top 4 as they come over the rise into McPhillamys Park. That's a dicey point of the track. You've got to be careful how you go about the moves there.
That was Tom Twatey looking down the inside of Gary Watson as they headed into McPhillamys Park. He thought better of it and backed out of it just as well. The last thing you want is these cars to be locking wheels, particularly these older historic Formula Fords, many of which have a lot of heritage. We saw Tim Berryman at the cutting trying to make a move down on the inside of I think it might have been the Andrew McGuinness car, and he just checked up on the exit as well and fell back into the clutches of the car behind. Out of Forest Elmo they come for the first time, and Conrod Straight all weekend in Formula Ford has been slipstreaming central, but one driver who doesn't have to worry about being slipstreamed is our race leader Ollie White, because he already has a commanding margin over the rest of the field. Gary Watson is going to be relegated back a couple of spots though, because Tom Twatey goes past and Richard Davison wheel to wheel through the kick, makes the bravest move up the inside and moves up into 2nd spot.
That takes a lot of guts and determination to get the job done there. A little bit of contact further back in the pack, unfortunately too. They're going off through the grass at the chase. A couple of people being a little bit risky on this opening lap. Of course, it's that risk versus reward factor. But how's the opening lap here from Oliver White? He is checked out, and G-O-N-E, he is gone.
And that incident we saw there at the chase, that was Andy Nethercote running off the road. I think he was involved in a battle there with Malcolm Osler and had to run wide to avoid contact between the cars. Andrew McGuinness now lines up for a shot at that very well-driven Group FA car of Gary Watson, and he's got Tim Berryman in behind him as well. Gary Watson's car maybe not performing as well as it did yesterday, because he doesn't quite seem to have the straight line speed that he had. Here's a replay of what happened in the chase. So by this stage, Richard Davison had already moved up to 2nd, but watch at the back of the shot. Down the inside, Malcolm Osler, big lock-up and great evasive action and awareness there for Andy Nethercote just to open up the steering and avoid contacts between those two cars.
And it's often hard to see, isn't it, Lockie, in one of these Formula Fords, because you've got graphic shots of it there going through Griffin's Bend. These mirrors on these cars are not, particularly big, because, once you're in the confinements of a race car as well, sometimes it can often be hard to try and move that head around. And when you've got a small little window that you can see through that mirror, it can often be quite difficult.
All of the English Formula Ford fans back in the UK were gloating on social media last night about the fact that it is 2-0 to England. Yesterday it was Tom Twatey who's the best of the Aussies, but this morning it is Richard Davison who's taking the challenge up to Oliver White at the front of the field. We'll look at this battle a bit further back in the pack. That's Johnny Gregg. He's the best of the Class FB runners, so that's the 1978 through to 1983 Formula Fords. And he and his wife Claire Gregg, who was the daughter of Chris Davison, are racing here on the mountain in historic Formula Ford this weekend.
Whilst we've got, I suppose, a moment here, let's talk about the classes and how that is broken down, particularly when looking at the decades and the years of these cars as well. So
Formula Ford first came to Australia in 1969. The Class FA cars, which are the oldest cars in the field, 1969 through to 1978. Class FB, 1978 to 1983, and then Class FC, which are the newer cars in the field, 1984 through to 1989.
Watching the cars once again coming through the chase. Glorious morning, as we mentioned at the opening here at Mount Panorama. It's set up for a brilliant day. Some pretty warm conditions, which are going to play a factor once we get to the race this afternoon. How's this move at the moment? Round the outside from Thomas Twatey going into Murray's corner. It's not often that you see that done, in fact, at that particular point of the racetrack, but he got the job done. And right now, the margin from first back to second is at 0.8 of a second. And then you've got this fight for position 2. And it's all or nothing between Twatey and Davison.
That was incredible. I don't think I've ever seen a move come off around the outside into Murray's corner, but Tom Twatey just so confident under brakes there and was able to brake later and harder than Richard Davison on the outside into Murray's corner. He moves up into 2nd spot. what those two drivers have to do is start working together and see if they can catch up to Ollie White, who currently leads this race by 0.8 of a second. The fastest lap of the race was set by Tom Tweedy, though, last time around at a 2-minute 29.5.
Gee, these two are really dicing hard, aren't they, at the moment? In fact, it looks like Davison has got back past Tweedy here once again, so he must have got that slipstream going up Mountain Straight there as well. You've probably got to say that these two really need to try and work with each other now to try and catch a leader, because each and every time they keep passing each other, Ollie White will just be looking in that mirror, smiling and thinking, hey, yeah, you boys keep doing that. I'll keep squeaking away here at the moment and try and pull away as the race leader. As we called it before, the margin from first back to second, currently 0.8 of a second, and we're reaching that halfway point right now.
There's no doubt that Tom Tweedy's quick across the top of the mountain, and you'd expect that from a driver who's had experience in all different types of race cars, including F3 cars and Porsche Carrera Cup cars and even Supercars Development Series cars. But he said to me yesterday that he felt that he didn't quite have the straight line performance of some of the other cars this weekend, and that's working to his detriment here at the Mount Panorama circuit, where straight line performance is so important. Richard Davison, interesting story there as well, because he is, as I mentioned, the father of Alex Davison and also Will Davison, the two-time Bathurst 1000 winner and 2001 Australian Formula 4 champion. But up until Friday practice, Richard had never actually turned laps in anger around Mount Panorama, so he's doing really well to be running in the top three, as we see another change in second position. Tom Tweedy back down the inside of Richard Davison and goes late under brakes into the chase, runs a bit wide on the exit, and now it'll be Tweedy who'll have to be on the defensive into Murray's corner as Davison goes to the outside this time.
This is a cracking battle, isn't it? So Tweedy holds the inside line going down into Murray. He's going to be a little bit lacklustre on the exit. He just runs a little bit wide, almost over the exit ripple strip. It might be half a chance here for Davison to get the job done. Maybe not at Hell Corner, but by the time they reach Griffin's Bend here, this is a belter to start off day 3 action of the Hi-Tec Oils Bathurst 6 Hour. Hope you're enjoying the action, of course. Join the conversation, hashtag B6HR this weekend. Here's this moment once again for Tweedy, just runs it a little bit deep. Davidson sitting in behind.
He missed the apex completely there, didn't he, Tom Tweedy? And was very lucky to pull that up a bit further back in the pack. This is the contest for 10th, 11th and 12th position. So you've got Henrik Thomas Kirscher, who was a retirement with mechanical problems yesterday. He's come through from the back today, running inside the top 10, the New Zealand driver. So that's a good performance for him. As this dice continues between Davison and Tweedy. Davison back ahead, so he must have made the move ahead of Tweedy up Mountain Straight. But while these two are battling, they're not working together. They're slowing each other down, and that has allowed Oliver White to skip away to the tune of 1.9 seconds in the lead of this motor race.
Already a very good morning to Declan Brennan, who's joining us. He goes, how insane is this pack at the moment? You're quite right there, Declan. It is an incredible battle right now. So if you're enjoying the action, like I mentioned, join the conversation throughout the portion of today. B6, hashtag B6HR, of course, as we watch this battle between Davidson and Tweedy right now, coming back down the hill. It's going to be 2.5 laps to go this time, guys. They drop it into the dipper. I reckon, Lockie, don't count out the fact of Andrew McGuinness here in car number 2 closing in here at the moment, because he's not too far away from this battle pack right now.
No, if anything, the cars that are going to benefit from this battle between Davison and Tweedy are the cars behind, including Andrew McGuinness and Gary Watson. And we've had a crash, unfortunately, up the top of the mountain for James Harvey. That's one of the other English drivers in the field, in the wall hard. And that's coming down over Skyline by the looks of it on the run down into the S's. And with that car in that position, you would have to say that, yep, this will trigger a safety car. And in fact, our computer timing in the commentary box went bright yellow just as I opened my mouth to make that remark.
And look at this wheel bouncing down, going down into the dipper as well. So very sizable damage, unfortunately. Got to be careful with these other cars passing as well. And it will come to a halt there at the dipper. So that's quite a sizable shunt there, and obviously possibly the car may be getting over that exit ripple strip. That tends to be the, I suppose, the action of that crash over there. You sometimes get it wide going over McPhillamy Park, drop it on the right hand side of the curb there, and then unfortunately the car sometimes tracks back onto that inside wall. So with 2 more laps to go, don't want to play devil's advocate, but this may well finish under safety car here.
Yeah, I've got a very unfortunate feeling, Brian, that you might be right in regards to that. And that's an interesting position to crash, because normally up the top of the mountain there, if you get a bit wide at McPhillamy Park, you end up in the you can overcorrect and end up in the wall on the left-hand side of the track. So we haven't seen any replays yet, but I'm just speculating that that might have been what's happened to James Harvey, but that's very unfortunate. That's one of the Acuri Australia cars as well, the Acuri Australia, which is the Davison-owned team, running a number of cars. So Henry Thomas Kirsch is in one of their cars as well. Obviously Oliver White, our race leader, and Richard Davison. And also Malcolm Ostel is having his car prepared by that outfit as well.
Now, I know you raised the point yesterday, I think, of obviously when we talk about historic racing, when does, you know, sort of the next breed of cars come into the category? And I think you mentioned FD yesterday as to when that might possibly roll out. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when that'll happen, but I know that there have been some, I suppose, fairly casual preliminary discussions from the powers that be within historic Formula Ford racing, because at some point there is going to have to be the next generation of cars allowed to run historically, because you've got early 1990s Formula Fords that are no longer competitive in state or national Formula Ford competition, but at the same time they're not yet eligible for historic racing. So there's going to become a time when they have to be allowed in. The problem is that that then renders the cars that are currently running at the front of the field in historic Formula Ford no longer competitive outright. So as you can imagine, people who own FC cars are resisting any newer cars coming in because they know that their cars will no longer be competitive in terms of outright performance. Yeah, that's exactly right. And give us a bit of a breakdown, obviously here this weekend at Mount Panorama as part of the hi-tec oils Bathurst 6 Hour, but where else do we genuinely often see these race cars compete at? So historic, here we go, here's a replay. We'll come back to that point because here's a replay of the end of the incident involving James Harvey. And there were no other cars in the shot, so you'd have to suggest that he's done it on his own. And we only sort of caught the tail end, didn't we? So I'm thinking that, yeah, if you look at that shot there, maybe he's just got a bit wide out onto the exit ripple strip there on the right-hand side, overcorrected and ended up in the wall on the left. The old witness marks, we like to call it, unfortunately, by the looks, just getting it wrong and finding that inside wall there on driver's left, going over the top of Mount Panorama. Good evasive work there by our volunteer officials and marshals there. Of course, that wheel was parting company with that race car, and also nearly found them actually up there on top of Mount Panorama. Probably a good opportunity as well for those here at the circuit this weekend to thank our wonderful officials, volunteers and marshals who have been out in amongst the heat so far all of this weekend. Of course, with all racing across the world, we simply wouldn't be able to enjoy the sport that we do, certainly love at the moment, without their amazing help. So we do thank, of course, our marshals this weekend, and of course they will certainly be busy people once we get towards the Bathurst 6 Hour a little bit later on this afternoon. So cars rolling back down Conrod Straight here, and I don't think we'll get a resumption of play this time by, which means we'll start the final lap under the control of our Toyota 86 hi-tec oils pace car. What a shame. So just coming back to your earlier question about where else we see these cars running. So here in New South Wales, they run as part of the HSRCA series. That's the Historic Sports and Racing Car Association. So that takes them to Wakefield Park. In fact, they have a round at Wakefield Park next weekend, and also Sydney Motorsport Park. And then in Victoria, we see them running at some of the big historic race meetings down there, including historic Phillip Island, where they had a big field of cars. Historic Winton, which is run on the short track at Winton. The Winton Festival of Speed, which is run on the long track at Winton. And also historic Sandown as well. So lots of places that these historic Formula Fords run. The other thing as well is that within the state championships in New South Wales and Victoria in particular, there is actually a historic class. So you do sometimes see some of the historic cars racing in the same race as the more modern cars. And as is the normal procedure here, when we have a safety car finish here at Mount Panorama, the safety car will peel into pit lane and the field will be allowed to take the checkered flag out of Murray's Corner, but they will be required to stay. In fact, no, the safety car is actually going to stay on the circuit, but it will be checkered flag this time around, so making it a clean sweep. He's come over from the UK. He's defeated all of the Aussie drivers on home soil. Congratulations to Oliver White.
He is your round winner for the Factory Enterprises Historic Formula Ford races here at the Hi-Tec Oils Bathurst 6 Hour. Richard Davison finishes up in second position. Tom Tweedy in third place. Tweedy will take second for the round based on his results from yesterday's races. Richard Davison gets a podium in his Mount Panorama debut, so that's a fantastic story there as well. Andrew McGuinness in fourth position. Gary Watson, the best of the class FA cars, finishing in fifth position, and Berryman, Steve Willing, Andy Nethercote, Henry Thomas Kershaw, a great drive from the rear of the field up into ninth spot. Malcolm Osler rounding out the top 10, and incidentally Johnny Gregg in position number 11 will win Class FB with a clean sweep of race victories in that class. So all three of our class winners this weekend taking clean sweeps in the three races.
It has, yeah. I came here with limited expectations because the track's so tricky to drive. There's a few of the guys that have done the track before, so I knew it was going to be tough, but yeah, it's a dream come true to win all three, so really happy. Yeah, I've seen some footage on the internet, so I knew how full on it was. Yeah, and to drive it in real life is amazing. It was definitely one of my bucket list tracks, so yeah, I'm delighted.
What a drive from Ollie White. A clean sweep this weekend here at Mount Panorama Bathurst. Thanks so much for joining us at this glorious Mount Panorama precinct.
Coming up after the break, we head over to the Alton Park circuit in the UK for round 2 of the British Sidecar Championship.